welcome to This is Your Pitch in 7 seconds. Sorry, 7 sentences. And today we're going to be covering all about how to completely transform your pitch. Now, I'm Camilla and I'm going to get started and do a full intro. And like I said, this is going to be a fully intensive session, right? So we are going to have slides. We're going to have a lot of interaction and involvement. But firstly, hello. And thank you so much for joining. It is a great pleasure to have those of you joining live. You will also, please do check the chat for your live bonus. As part of joining us live today, you will be receiving 10 specific prompts, which you can copy and paste into your favorite LLM. So if you like ChatGPT, if you like Claude, whichever your favorite, you can take these prompts from today's session and use them and apply them to help to improve your pitch immediately, right? And in today's session, we're going to be doing this live as well, right? So first of all, let me just share my screen, right? Let me just make sure everyone can see my screen and the slides well. I'm just going to do a quick check. If I can get a thumbs up, if I can get a reaction from you, just to confirm you can see my slides well. Please feel free. Yes. Thank you, Charlotte, for showing that you can see my slides well. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so today as well, just to introduce, so I'm coming to you live, and this is a fully interactive session. So I want you to please put your questions in the chat. If you're joining this session a few minutes late, do not worry. You can catch up and, of course, post your questions in the chat as we go, right? This is a fully and very much interactive session. So the first topic that I'm going to cover in today's session is going to be all around rejection, right? So what is rejection in a sales pitch, and why is it so crucial that we have a specific strategy to really unlock and understand how to better approach the rejection in the potential of rejection, right? This is a sales concept that ideally we need to get comfortable with, which is in any selling environment, right? We have the buyer, the live buyer, and there is the potential that they can say yes and they can say no. So in a really simple way, I want to land this concept in terms of why I'm having this webinar today. So the aim is to help you to increase your results, increase clients, increase conversion, drastically change the reception that you get to your pitch. But one of the things which I find with founders, with startups that I work with, is that there is some apprehension around the actual potential of rejection in a pitch scenario. So what tends to happen is that founders will then perhaps either avoid a pitch scenario, or also what can happen is that a founder will, in a pitch environment, will feel uncomfortable, will feel inhibited, and will in some way out of that inhibit their ability to truly convert and land a buyer. So this is the core of what we're going to cover. And again, it isn't that they don't want necessarily what you have to offer, right? Why does rejection come up? Well, it's something that is to do with the gap which exists. And it's this gap which comes up in terms of the relevance, the perceived relevance of something new, right? We are introducing, as a founder, as a seller, as a business, we are introducing a concept to our buyer, which is new to them, right? So initially, they're going to be screening and thinking about, is this relevant to them, right? Is this something that is of interest? And this is really important for us to get clear that it is all about, right? It is all about and if you're joining live, please do check the chat for your join live prompt pack. So in the chat, we have a link to the prompt pack. There is also another key resource as well in the chat. So make sure you check the chat of the Zoom, and thank you so much for joining. Right, so with that, we're talking all about rejection. Why does it come up? And again, this is about enhancing your pitch so that it doesn't feel pushy, so that it feels natural. There's a transition in your pitch which is going to take place, right? So this is about today helping you in your messaging and your delivery of your pitch so that you remove some of the friction which can potentially come up, which is called buyer resistance, right? So when buyer resistance comes up, it is to do with apprehension, right? Concern around if your offering directly relates So this is a really important concept for us to consider, right? And now if we continue, right? So what is a pitch, right? Well, a pitch is a decision tool. So a pitch is not a description, right? Let's think about what a pitch is not. It's not there's a lot of things that can come up in a pitch, right? A pitch is not necessarily going to appeal to everyone. A pitch is definitely not a description, but it is a form of, in the way I see it, it's a form of decision tool for you and your business. Because what you're doing with this pitch is, and this is key to really understanding, why is the pitch so important? Because your pitch is essentially, right, it's the way for your buyer to that step to work with you. It is like the ladder which goes to accessing your business. So if you have a good pitch, it helps them to take that decision fast and with confidence. If your pitch is not your decision tool, if your pitch is, for example, about promoting, let's say, certain aspects of your business, if it loses its core focus, then a buyer reaches the end and they're not able to take a decision. They feel like they're maybe lacking information, lacking clarity, and that is one of the key reasons, right, which can stop a decision being made at the end of your pitch. And this is the crucial, right? This is so important to understand. So they're saying essentially, this is for me, this isn't for me, right? So your pitch should help someone. It should create curiosity and clarity. But if there is ambiguity, right, meaning a sense of not uncertainty, meaning a sense of it could be this or it could be that. This offering could apply here, maybe. Again, if it lacks any certainty, that's going to cause a potential decision conflict or lock. So the best pitches are essentially like natural decision-making engines in that they help to efficiently guide your buyer to their end decision, right? And this is so important right? And now we're going to cover, this is a really central part, everyone. So I'm just going to invite everyone to really, right, make notes, tune in on this slide, right? Because every single good pitch has 5 key anchors. Okay, so number 1, clear who it's for. Okay, number 2, and what does that mean? Well, it means that it's precise on the audience. It's precise on the targeting, the ideal buyer, who it is for. On the specific, number 2, anchor number 2 is the outcome. It's highly specific on the results and the outcome. If you've ever heard a really good pitch, it's going to speak a lot about the results and the outcome. And this is something that so many founders miss, right? Because again, if we can't be specific about the result, so it's about what is the top 1 result or pain point that your buyer urgently wants to avoid. So it is about being selective, right? But it is about being clear. What is the outcome that your buyer can expect, look forward to, consider exciting? And it's introducing this early on. So many founders are missing this. And again, without this anchor, right? If there isn't that appeal of being drawn towards a specific result or gain or outcome, the buyer's not necessarily going to have the motivation to actually move forward in your pitch. Number 3, what is the defined shift? Okay, so this is anchor number 3. What and how do you define, right? So this is about the before and after and the shift that you're creating. It could be linked to a transformation, right? So where is your ideal buyer at? And then where do they get to? That's this key anchor, right? So it's related to a shift, or depending on what your product or offering is, it might also be related to your mechanism. And what that means is how, right? So it's your unique way of doing something. So again, we're always talking about defined, so specific, and then it could be the mechanism. But again, leading to a specific outcome and transformation. Anchor number 4, simple language. Who here has heard of cognitive load? Right? If we are using language or messaging, which is creating too much burden on our buyers to actually grasp and understand, again, they're potentially going to tune out. They're going to maybe discount the information that they're hearing, or they're simply going to get caught up in trying to figure out what we offer, right? So the simplicity of language is super important as well. And then the final outcome is your confidence in your delivery, right? So how you articulate, how you deliver your pitch. This consists of your tone, your gestures, right? This consists of every aspect of your live pitch delivery. And for those joining this webinar, I'm delivering this webinar entirely live virtually, right? So again, that still gives me a lot of ability to really articulate, express, and apply body language and gesture. So these are the 5 key anchors of a really strong pitch. And if just one of these is missing, if just one is off, then again, this can inhibit, this can affect, the certainty that your buyer has. It can affect the clarity, it can affect the all-important sales and the outcome. So ultimately, again, these are the key ways that you can stop creating hesitation in your pitch. So I'd like to invite everyone just to take a moment, to reflect in terms of your pitch today. Now, this is linked to your pitch as it is today. Now, today, together, we are here to transform your pitch, right? So we're going to do some work on this live. So just going to prepare everyone that next, I'm going to present one more key slide on this, and then I'm going to invite everyone to literally start to make that shift in terms of their pitch, right? So one of the best ways for us to start to create change in our pitch is going to be to compress and really, start to chunk it down. So if we start with just the first 2 lines, so you will have heard a structure like this, Typically, it will be I help so that they can. So I help so that they can. Again, this is a very simple framework, but what it does do is it forces you to reflect and evaluate in terms of choice, So I'm looking for you to specify and choose your specific audience, the specific outcome clarity that you want to highlight in your pitch. So we are going to build and develop this and make it more complex. But just to start with, we're thinking what's the outcome clarity and what is the simplicity. So this is three of the key anchors of the 5 that I just shared with you, And why is this so important? Because like I said, we're getting into the mode and the active, in terms of thinking about our pitch, examining it and re-examining it. And in some cases, we've had our pitch for some time. In some cases, we've had our pitch for a few months, And we've detected that we might not be getting the response, the decisions, the outcome to our meetings that we want, So this is why we're starting here. So what I would like you to do, and for those who hopped on now, we are doing, so this is our first exercise around transforming our pitch and building towards the 7-sentence pitch, which is going to stop rejection altogether, So please take a moment. I'm just going to put a timer. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat as well. But I want to give you some time. This is a live workshop session. Feel free to unmic and ask any questions. And we have also Kara here from the team as well. So Kara is here to support. Kara, did you want to do a quick intro?
Hi, everyone. I'm supporting Camilla for all her summit. If you have any questions, feel free to send it in our Zoom group chat.
Thanks, Kara. Yeah. So I've started a timer, everyone. So please do grab a piece of paper or a scrap of paper, anything you can find that you can write on, and feel free to get started, So I'm going to use the whiteboard over here, and then in a moment, when we finish this exercise, I'm gonna come to at least one person. So please take a moment just to do this. So the first part is 2 lines. So I help, and then so that they can. Okay, so we have about 3.5 minutes left, everyone. 3.5 minutes left. Okay, And Kara, if there are any questions in the chat, feel free to call them out. Okay, so we have about 1 minute, 46 seconds. Okay, keep going, everyone. Well done if you're doing this. Okay, do we have any questions at all?
None so far.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that's our timer. Okay, fantastic. So for those online, now I would love to hear from you. If you are able to share and you would like to unmic, please feel free just to unmic and introduce yourself and just share if did you get to sentence one? Did you get both done? And what did you find out in the exercise? Did you learn anything new? So if you would like to share anything, just going to give everyone a moment. That's absolutely fine if you're still maybe working, or if you want to wait, I'll just give everyone another opportunity if they would like to share. And if not, I'm just checking don't see anything in the chat. Okay, well, that's absolutely fine. We have a lot to cover. So if you want to get a bit more understanding, right, about what we're working on, absolutely fine. So now we're going to cover, this is the core in terms of the core training for this webinar, right? Which is the 7-sentence pitch. And it includes these key elements. So again, grab your notepad and feel free to note these down. So number one, the strongest sentence is going to be your intro hook. Why this is so important is because, again, you need to demonstrate relevance, create curiosity, have some kind of impact at the start of your pitch, right? And this is actually my proprietary framework, which is called the impact formula, right? So this is part of it. So the strong intro is incredibly important. And what that could be would be a question to your audience. It would be potentially a question to your buyer. You could, for example, take a whiteboard and you could do something like this, right? I'm just writing down a number, right? I've written 818. And then I could be like, okay, what do you think this number stands for? And then I'm going to tell my audience, right? I'm going to tell them something surprising about the statistic that I've written. And why this is so important is because, again, it's a catchy, different, unexpected opening. How many pitches have your buyers seen? Probably hundreds, right? Or maybe, okay, maybe not hundreds, but maybe tens of pitches in their time, right? Or they've heard them on TV or all sorts of places. So again, if we want to stand out, we've got to think of doing something a bit differently. And the attention that your audience has is just like a hammer, right? So it goes up and then it comes down, right? And then it's going to come back up at the end. So there's this key part, which is the potential interest for those in your audience is at the highest at the start. So we need that hook in there. So we need to tell them. So it could be a stat, question, as I shared, or something, some kind of statement, right, which is going to create surprise and curiosity. Secondly, it's going to be how your offer is relevant to this specific buyer or audience. Again, most important that we personalize our pitches so that your audience is really clear, so they're listening more intently. And it could include something like your mission, right? And your mission is going to be focused on, again, why you're so dedicated and committed to bringing this offering to your audience, right? But again, they want to feel like what you're bringing is incredibly relevant and important for them early on. Because again, if they don't feel this, what's going to happen is they're going to potentially discount the information, which means they might tune out, right? Selectively tune out. And because there's so much information around now, right, this can happen even more easily. So to recap, right, so we've got our hook, we've got our relevance, and then we've got our relevance is number 2. Sentence number 3 is about your relatable problem that you solve in an innovative, in a better way than other offerings, than previous offerings, than any offering if you have a new niche or product that you're starting, right? So if this is the case, it's about perhaps then illustrating, right, how this is a bigger problem, not just for your audience, how it's relatable, and there's a bigger picture market, right? There's a bigger picture market that you're helping, which maybe your audience is not aware of, right? Your buyer doesn't realize that they're one of many, many people or many, many, in this specific scenario. Again, giving a sense of the scale of your problem that you solve in your pitch is going to be important, because if you can emphasize that this is a bigger problem, then it's going to help your listener, your buyer, to feel again a sense of, right, a sense of the fact that they're not the only ones who are potentially struggling with this. And that's important, because that again is demonstrating to your specific buyer why they matter, right? Why this matters, why your offering matters, why they matter, right? And so that's the first three. And we're going to go through these relatively fast, because we do have quite a lot to cover. But if there are questions, please pop them in the chat. So number 4, in terms of sentence 4, and again, this is the structure. So what I'm teaching you here is a specific, unique approach and structure, which you can apply directly to your business. So the next step 4 is going to be your proof and credibility phrase. So on this, it's about how specifically this works. This is effective. So for your proof and credibility, who have you done this for? Why? How many people? If it's a new offering, this might be just a pilot or some pilots to demonstrate the effectiveness, right, of this offering. Yeah. So that's going to be important, because proof and credibility is a sense, even if it's just an initial pilot or several happy initial clients, that's still giving a sense that this works, this is effective. And again, a buyer wants to feel like they are buying into a solution which is highly effective. That is, it's like not just any solution, but a good solution. That's the feeling that they want here, right? So that's phrase 4 and sentence 4. The next sentence, sentence 5, is going to be around the assets and advantage of your offer, right? So why should they choose you? What assets do you have specific to this offering, right? So what's your key strength points? Maybe it's the experience of your team. Maybe it's the specific equipment, right? It could be that you have a specific patent pending. For example, I was actually listening recently to Sarah Blakely talk about the early days of her business Spanx, and she mentioned that she specifically applied for a patent. It was pending for a very long time, like years and years, but she applied for it in the early days of her business. And of course, Spanx went on to become $1 billion business. But she applied for a patent so that she could refer to that in her pitch, in her business conversations, to sound and come across, again, as a more exciting offering. So I thought that was really, really innovative. Okay. So again, you can have a specific asset. It might be your experience, your blend of experience. It could be any type of advantage that your offering has. And this links directly to the differentiation and the why choose you. And of course, we don't need to know every offering in a competitive set around what we do, but we do need to know, perhaps there's a more established offering, which is further ahead than we are. And maybe though we want to refer to how we differ to that, because that offering is a very established market offering. So maybe we want to say, in our pitch, right, we're a bit like such and such company, but we do this in a different way to them, right? Here's how we're not the same. And that's just creating, again, all of these important connections in the mind of your buyer to say, where does this fit in? How is this relevant to them? And where exactly does your offering fit in? Because again, if we can help your buyer to get really clear, a lot of clarity, they're going to feel confident that they are taking a decision with all the information. So again, it doesn't need to be exhaustive. And this is another really important thing, right? We don't want to overload with information. We want to give them the specific key. So all of these are one sentence, right? One sentence on your commercial. This is number 6, right? Your commercial or other tangible need a payoff that you're delivering. So what does this mean? Well, this means, and again, this is how do they gain? So do they gain in time? Do they gain in money? or do they gain in another result or opportunity area, right? Typically, it would be it can be a long-term gain, it can be a short-term gain, it can be a daily gain, it can be any type of way, right? But this is specifically linked to a payoff, not literally a payoff, right? But actually an advantage and a result. So if a buyer feels like they will get some kind of reward or gain from what you offer, that's important for them to note early on, because this is going to motivate them to move forward. Because buyers they importantly either want to, like I said earlier, avoid a specific pain, or much more importantly, because in avoiding a pain, they're not necessarily so motivated by that unless the pain is growing. But in terms of getting a specific gain, right, that is much more appealing, right? Because they feel better off. So if you can come up with a specific tangible or intangible, right? So what I mean by that is it's either something that, like this pen that I can hold, right? That is a tangible, right? But if it's intangible, maybe it's confidence. Maybe it is that they gain in terms of looks, right? Do they gain in terms of intelligence? Do they gain in terms of status? Do they gain in terms of, right, their popularity? These are some of and that would be a type of status, right? And then, well, so again, in terms of what I do and how I help founders, right? Typically it's in the well zone, right? So to increase sales and clients, which ultimately is helping them to improve their wealth. So it's thinking, where does your offering fit in those different realms of how it benefits, and what is that commercial need payoff that it's delivering. And you don't necessarily need to indicate when they receive it, but you need to be able to articulate in your pitch to the fact that this is a gain, tangible or intangible, that they will get, enjoy, etc. Or, for example, if it's for their family, if it's not, or not for the end buyer, if it's something that those in their, for example, team will enjoy, then we want to be clear on who is benefiting, right? And this would be if, let's say, so for example, if you are selling an offering which relates to, for example, in a family, right? If it's for children and you're selling to the parents, then that is going to be a gain related to, for example, the children in that example. 7. Okay, this is really important. This is sentence 7, which is your ask. It's your clear and specific, right? What is it that is a next step you are proposing? So are you proposing for, and it's making this in some ways, right, feel comfortable at the level of awareness that your buyer has. So what I mean by this is that typically your buyer comes in and they're at this awareness. I hope everyone can see the board, by the way. Sorry, I'll just move this so you can definitely see my board. But I hope you can see my writing. I can try to also write bigger, right? But this is awareness. You can see. Okay, good. So this is awareness, right? And this is, who's familiar with the funnel of so this is key, right? So it's ADA. So it's awareness to interest to desire to action. Okay, so an action is the final, right? That final action. But if, for example, we've only just learnt, right, and been able to present to our buyer, they've only just learned about what we do. In our pitch, right, what we're also thinking about here is how we're taking them and we're developing them from just awareness, from just a little bit of awareness about what we do in these first 2 sentences, right, into interest, right? Interest is coming in here. Interest is coming in proof. Interest is coming in assets, right? So do you see how we're moving them through this pitch structure right through to desire? And desire is typically coming where they know there is an actual need, payoff, and benefit that they're going to definitely get, right? And then finally, the action is going to be linked to the clear and specific ask. So the action is, what is that step, right? How can they work with us? Confident ask, specific ask as well, right? Do we want, and this is, a key area that many, many people will fall down on, which is, again, we want to build this in to comfortably into the timing. It's not that we finish, our pitch and then we tag on. So when should we have our next meeting? If what we want is a next meeting, we need to be building that directly in. So it's really received and heard and agreed to in the session. Similarly, if we want those to work with us, right? That's our action step here. That's so important, right? So we want to cover all of these areas in our pitch. And that's why it's together that these sentences really work, right? We're not looking to just use one or two. We need to use all 7 together, right? So that's the power of this framework that I've just taught you. So for those who are here live, right, this is your 7-sentence pitch that stops rejection. That is it in its core and essence, right? Now you have this sense of how this works, right? And what this is. And again, I'm not expecting that in this session, right, you're necessarily going to get to your final, right? But I am going to invite you, right, to think about today how your pitch is structured. Think about, right, how might this change that, right? How might following a structure like this, how might you shift your current pitch into something like this? And maybe this is going to indicate for you as well, right, why currently, if, like I was saying, if there's just one element of this, there's just awareness, but there's no interest being developed. Why perhaps it's not developing in the way that you want, right? So I did say that we're going to have a live workshop session, and I do want you to develop this, right? I want you to give yourself the opportunity to develop this. But I'm also conscious, right, that everyone in terms of today's session will be taking this in for the first time. So I'm going to give some time for us to work on this, but we're going to carry on, and then we are going to come to the workshop part a little bit later on, right? But after your pitch, you want ideally that your buyer is thinking of one of 4 things. So coming back to the example I just shared, right? And why it's so incredibly important to do this type of structure. Right? So you want them to directly be thinking, I get this, right? I get this business and I get its value. I get the solution that they offer and why it's so useful to me or to others, right? I get this. Okay. Number 2 would be I'm interested, but I'm unclear, right? So if they are interested, coming back to the stages I just mentioned, but they're still a little bit unclear, that means they are still curious, they're interested, they're lacking enough clarity to move forward. Maybe they're thinking, actually, do you know what? And this is currently, right? It be, I just need a bit more info, right? I'm confused and I want more information. Have you ever had a buyer say to you, can you send me an email of this? Could you share more with me, right? That will typically be where they are confused. There's something unclear to them, which maybe they were almost embarrassed to raise, right? And that's important for us to think about. Maybe they said to you, I'll think about it. So in the example of I'll think about it, what do you think of these, right? What do you think wasn't strong enough? Okay. Maybe they got the awareness. Maybe they got the request for action, but the desire isn't strong enough, right? I need to think about it means literally, I don't feel compelled. I don't feel attracted to moving forward with this right now. And we have to remember that there is this, right? People are either moving towards something, moving towards your offering, or perhaps they're moving away from it in favor of something else. Because if they want a solution, they are actively, right, when they are in that phase of actively looking for solutions like yours, they will choose one, right? So that's really important. And that's why the I'll need to think about it is a form of polite it's a form of like non-commitment ultimately. And we're looking for buyers who want to commit to us. So really, only one of the responses on here actually creates any momentum or future progress for your business. This is also what I want to emphasize, right? Because if you've gone and you've done the pitch and you've done all the work and you've got to that point with your buy in, like ultimately that is a lost opportunity, right? Because you've kind of invested in the buyer and the opportunity. So what you want is for them to say, number one, I get this, I have complete clarity, and I'm ready to move forward, right? But often it might be one of the other ones that you are maybe, or again, you might have experienced before. So here's something else that I really want to share with you, right? That your landing page, and you've probably not heard of a landing page referred to like this, right? When we think about your website, right? Ultimately, your website is to me, a website is a pitch in print. What do I mean by that? I mean that your pitch is literally like elements of your pitch and the consistency of it need to be in that landing page, in your company website. Why is that important? Well, because again, ultimately, when someone goes to a landing page, they are there to evaluate, they're there to understand whether they want to move forward. So this is something that, again, many founders and businesses are not doing, which is treating their website like an actual, right? Like a sales opportunity, and thinking not just about online conversion and metrics, right? Yes, metrics. Metrics are important. But what about the messaging? What about if you've got a headline that literally will not be able to be understood by your ideal buyer? What if you've got a headline which is, again, it's not grabbing attention? What if you've got a page that is so incredibly full of information? And I've seen so many websites like this. It's so full of intelligent, brilliant information, right? It's actually quite difficult to differentiate and wade through all of that information. And how many buyers are going to be willing and committed enough at an early awareness or interest point to really doing this, right? This is what we have to remember as well. So again, your landing page and your website it's your business pitch in print. And so you want it to be crisp and decisive, and you want it to be, again, clear, right? It's not just about design. It's not just about colors and logos and branding, right? In my view, again, and I'm teaching based from, right, from business conversion and client perspective. And that's what I really want to help everyone joining this call, right? Joining this event to do, to convert more clients ultimately. So, and I can also tell you, right, that there is in some of the how I work with people, right? There is literally ways to build your landing page, okay? And there is a way to have a checklist, right? So that you don't miss any of these elements. And that can be really important where, right? You don't want to overload your buyer. So my big question to you and to you joining, right, is here is the question. Do you, right, today, do you want to just understand this? Do you want to just understand what we're learning today from like a theory perspective? Do any of us, right, when we learn, when we're growing, when we're building, do we just want to understand? Or do we actually want to apply an action and really implement, right, our learning? Because strictly speaking, learning just for the sake of learning is not going to get us much further, right? So we want to learn. But why is it that so many people struggle to actually apply what they learn? Well, it could be, right, habits around doing that well. It can be a lack of clarity around chunking it down, specifically what to focus on, right? There can be multiple reasons why this happens, right? But really, we want to understand that by being a perpetual learner, again, there's a huge culture in entrepreneurship and for founders, right? They need, right? We all need to be able to get hands, stuck in our business. But ultimately, we're not here to be just learners and adult students, right? We want to actually see growth and results and benefit. And that can really only come from doing things in a different way and from really committing to taking action differently. So that's my question, right? That's always a key question. Do you want to understand what you learn, right? Because again, now I'm going to speak with you in a moment about, right, a stack and how I specifically can help you around what I call your pitch mechanics. So your pitch mechanics is, so we've looked at some of the mechanics today. We've looked at the structure. The structure is one aspect. The articulation is another key aspect. And because I want to give you massive value and I want to make sure that you leave this session with tangible ways to move forward with your pitch. So if you check the chat, you have your 10 pitch prompts that you can take your AI LLM and implement immediately, right? So number one, you already have those. But I also want to share with you, and I also promise to share with you as part of this session as well, right? Something else. And so what I also want, in addition to your 10 pitch prompt pack, right, is, and and this is also in the chat, it's your 7-minute pitch self audit. Okay. So I'm going to go through with you. So please check the chat and I can open this up and view this with you as well. So let me just find this and we can just look at it together, right? So here is your resource today. And if we go to this, whoop, okay, we're going there. 1 second. I hope we're going there. Yeah. So here's what this is, right? Because again, how often does it happen that we have an opportunity, we have things in front of us and we miss like how valuable they really are for us, right? So I really want to walk you through what this is. And again, this is something that you can do today to help to move your pitch forward based on some of the concepts we talked about in this session, right? So I want you to do this 7-minute pitch self audit because this is going to help you to understand exactly where in your pitch you need to ultimately twist and tune the mechanics, like I said. So step one is to record a 2 to 5 minute pitch on your phone, right? Use this opportunity. And then I want you to watch or listen just once and do this without judging, right? So play it back. And then I want you to, so I've given you specific categories, right? So I've given you from 0 to 3. It's a scorecard, right? So you can print this out or you can do this digitally. So number one, and this again, this links directly back to what we've already learned today. So I just want to help you to see how this is going to what we've covered today. So number one is outcome clarity, right? So we started with we help, right? So that's your outcome clarity. Is it in your pitch today? Is it your outcome clarity which is lacking, right? And we did start with a very simple 2-sentence pitch. But now I'm inviting you to think about, right, not just we help X with, but what's the time frame? What's the specificity around the buyer? What's the measurable outcome? And what's the big pain that your buyer is worried about facing now or in the future? And only you will know this, right? This is for you who really deeply knows your product and your offering, right? So that's number one. So I want you to score, right? I want you to listen to your pitch as you currently do it, first of all. And don't change anything because what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather, right? What's the outcome that we currently have in our pitch? Do we have one? Do we refer to an outcome? Okay. If we don't, that's fine. We can just put a 0 in this category. And for those jumping on, we're just looking at the resource. So for those joining live in the chat, you get your 10 prompts, your 10 pitch prompts pack, your 10 pitch prompts that you can use in your favorite LLM. And then this is your other resource, right? Which is your 7-minute pitch self audit. So we're just going through the different categories in the scorecard and how, so you record your pitch for between 2 and 5 minutes. If you're comfortable on camera, do a camera one. If you prefer an audio, do an audio, right? Number 2, this is the second category. What's your pain precision? Do you talk about pain? Do you talk about the pain that your ideal buyer is facing at all? Do you come to something that your ideal buyer is potentially facing every day all the time? Is there some kind of relatable pain point? And this touches on what we talked about in the session earlier today, right? On the structure, the 5 key anchors. What's your relatable pain point that you're solving? So again, is there pain precision in your pitch? Number 3, is there credibility without bragging? And this is a great one, right? So within a pitch, we want to be open, transparent about our credibility, our proof points. Again, we don't want to exaggerate and we don't want to come across, right, as, but we want to have enough in there for it to be strong credibility, right? So again, who's the top client you worked with? Who's a major company? Who is a major company you work for? Something notable about either your experience or your offering, right? But you want to have this credibility. Have you done a pilot? How can you prove, even if you've only worked with 2 clients, how well has it worked for them? What's the relevant proof in your pitch? Number 4, we talked about the mechanism, just a tiny bit on this, right? The how this, and you can see I've put here as a guide, no more than 20 seconds in your pitch for the mechanism. So this is around how does your pitch actually, how do you essentially create this result? Just a tiny bit to create curiosity and interest, right? Does this exist in your pitch as it is today, right? Or not? Again, any areas which don't currently apply in your current pitch, just put a 0, absolutely fine. Number 5 is differentiation. So most options do this and this and this, which is why you get that. And this in this way, which is why you get X, Y, Z, right? So again, what's your differentiation points in your pitch? Score for that out of 3. Next, and can you see everyone, right, who's on the call, that what we're doing here is we're literally helping to really expand our minds around what we include in our pitch and the key areas. So this scorecard is actually then something you can take and create in terms of your key elements, right? So decision leadership, right? What is the decision leadership element in your pitch? How are you, right, inviting your prospect? And this links to the gains. What's the status? Do they gain intelligence? Do they gain, what is the decision leadership that when they take a decision to work with you, they essentially get some kind of decision benefit? Maybe it's a feeling of feeling more empowered. Maybe it's a feeling of feeling freer, better. That is decision leadership. It's when you take this, when you start to work with us, here's the shift in terms of identity that you will see. And that's what you're referring to here, right? You're referring to the future in a subtle way in terms of decision leadership when they choose to go ahead. Okay, so that's number 6. So again, how are we currently including anything around when your buyer decides? Because ultimately, we're inviting them to take a decision. As I said at the very start of this webinar and this session, I said your pitch is a decision tool. Your pitch is literally going to help your buyers it's going to help them to take that final decision to work with you. So that's why it's so important. So decision leadership in your pitch. Next is handling. So handling, right? So if they say send info, right? Is there an aspect of you pre-handling objections in your pitch? So for example, right? Why are you telling them in your pitch about about why a certain objection doesn't apply, right? So you could say something like, and you might say, send me an email. But if I sent you an email, right, you would miss out on all the extra kind of key detail and clarity on this offering that I can bring you today in this session. So while I'm here, please ask me as many questions as you want so that you can literally get all the clarity you need to take a decision on working with me. Do you see how we want to be pre-handling? So we're not just saying, yes, and I'll send you this pitch via email. Thank you so much, right? How many pitches say that? Next would be, if you're having a specific structure, right? If you're on a call, this is more relevant for virtual pitches. But again, I want to know if you tell people at the start of your pitch, is there a structure to, right, to hearing is there some kind of structure around this, how they, right, how they take this in, that you're going to walk them through? So what's the structure? That's most applicable for calls and meetings online. And then offer clarity, right? So what's your one sentence, deliverables, timeline, and involvement? What is needed from them to get started? So do they need to, for example, create an account? Do they need to subscribe? Like, what specifically do you want your ideal buyer to do in order to move forward with you? So this includes the following areas. It includes your deliverables, your timeline, and then indicating to them, this is super important as well. This is literally preparing your buyer around what do they need to do in order to actually go ahead. Do you want them to sign up right here? Do you want them to, for example, but how can what are the steps they might need to take? Super important to build some kind of sense of what involvement you need from them. And then in terms of confidence and compression, right? So we want to emit and deliver and articulate with confidence. So I want you to give your current pitch the score in terms of what was the confidence that you heard from yourself, right, in that pitch. Because ultimately we want to, right, sales is partly the transference of belief from one person to another. So again, if you hear confidence from a founder, right, if you as a founder are hearing confidence from yourself, then that is super important. So I want you to think about your current confidence level and then think about any filler phrases that you heard from yourself and think about the compression, right? How you can narrow down your pitch in order to compress it, right? So in order to literally, essentially make it more succinct, right? Conciseness and succinct selling is important. Sometimes people are literally putting too much in their pitch and it's over looking at that. Okay, so this is the scorecard, right? And then after you do these scores, right, you're thinking one line that you will use directly to lead the decision in your buyer. So what's that? What is that one line that you don't currently have, but which from doing the pitch self audit, you want to do next time to really confidently lead and create a decision in your buyer? And I also want to share with everyone, right, that when you do this, that is a part of your ask. It's a part of inviting your buyer to take action. So it's not just an ask, it's not just like a call to action, but it's actually how you're, again, coming back to this concept that I've introduced today, which is your pitch is about, it's a decision tool. You're helping your buyers constantly with all the information that and the way you deliver your pitch for them to just take that specific decision. And what is the one line that you will indicate and input to your pitch to guide them to now is the time, right? Now is the time. But I'm inviting you to make the decision on if you want to move forward with this. That's the kind of phrase, right? But I really want you to get clear and conscious on what is that line going to be. And then so that is your pitch self audit, right? Which you can do directly after this session. We are having a workshop session today, right? So again, for those who are ready to do this self audit, we can start with the first few sections now. I also just want to highlight, right, that there is related to this, right? There is a specific offer which I have shared with you, which is called the pitch decision review. This is where, via your self-audit and via your pitch recording, once you complete it, I will then personally review your pitch. I will provide you with feedback and I will tell you the exact decision moment that you need to add and include in your pitch in order to perfect and deliver the kind of conversion and result you want to see. So that is in this as well, right? So again, feel free to consider and think about once you have your self audit if you would like to do that. So, right, so this is a workshop session. I do still have more to add. So for those of you who are on this call, we are doing a live pitch workshop. But before we start the workshop section, I have something else to share with you, right? I have some important, so I promised that as part of this webinar and as part of this event, right, I was going to share with you not only, so today, just to recap what we've already covered, and so that, everyone is clear, right? Today we have covered the 5 pillars that every pitch, right, the 5 core pillars that will help to make your pitch more effective. We've also covered the 7-sentence pitch framework structure. We've covered the different levels related from awareness, interest, desire, and action that your pitch, if it includes, this is how it will be more effective. And now I've shared this scorecard, which you all have in order to review and audit your own pitch, right? As it is now. Now I'm going to share with you more, okay? Because we're not just doing, this is not just about some value, right? I want you all to get massive value from today's session. So the next thing we're going to cover, right? So let me just get my slides here. Let's just get to this. So the next thing we're going to cover, I actually promised to share with you some AI, amazing AI tools and a workflow, right, to help you either low cost or free to get the best pitch slides and deck, right? I know that a lot of you here are on a budget, right? And potentially, again, looking to maximize around what you can achieve with the resources you have. And this is the amazing thing, right? That today we have such phenomenal resources available to us thanks to AI. So for those of you joining, right, I'm now going to cover the specific tools that I recommend for your pitch, either fundraising, or you can use this for client related decks as well. So if you pitch to clients, to buyers, or to investors, this next section is going to be super relevant. So make sure you stay and focus and take notes and ask me questions as well. So here's why AI has really changed the pitch landscape, right? Because number one, in terms of research, access to more sources, we can ask AI to help us to research a key area, right? How phenomenal is that? But it's more than that, right? It's now the fact that we don't have to outsource every aspect of our business. We don't need necessarily, right? We can additional resources. So I want to be clear that we're not just handing everything over to AI, but we can definitely rely on it for key outputs, which can help us to, again, have ways to advance further faster. And this is super important, right? So we've got these tried and tested, established tools, and AI is getting better all the time, which is so exciting to me. And I'm sure to you on this call as well, because it's creating more opportunities for us to do more with less, right? We're going to need a team, but perhaps we need a smaller team than we might have needed in the past, right? So if you learn as a founder to leverage these tools, and again, we said we're not just becoming students here, right? We're not. We're becoming like serious founders and entrepreneurs who know how to leverage a business, right? So, and leverage tools and resources, and that includes AI. So the 3 pillars of a winning pitch, which I've shared. So today, cover number 1. I've also mentioned number 2 around landing pages and how your landing page, I called it your pitch in writing, right? Visual design is incredibly important as well in terms of your slides, in terms of your pitch, right? Because your slides really do help to represent your brand in this case. And number 3, in terms of financial modeling. Who here has seen shows like Shark Tank and many others, right? The clarity and the way that you present your financial business model, again, can have all the difference in terms of you receiving investment or ultimately you receiving, right, you essentially winning a client because they can see, right, that you're growing. And that is exciting to clients and to investors, right? Highly exciting. So your financials are going to be important too, right? So you are looking for defensible numbers that hold up under scrutiny. So here's how AI can specifically help you in this area. So number one, in terms of decks and deck builders, right? So here I'm sharing specifically AI tools to help you around slide design. So number one would be Slide Bean. So if you, and this, I've structured this according to your founder stage as well. So you feel free to pop in the chat if your founder stage is not covered here, right? But firstly, if you're pre-seed as a founder and you want to just, again, if you're looking to fundraise, startup fundraising, then SlideBean is going to be helpful. It has AI assisted deck creation, right? So you can use prompts. I've provided you as part of this session 10 prompts for your pitch. So let's say you go to SlideBean now directly from this session and you input some prompts and you start to create your deck and your visuals. It has integrated financial model templates, right? And it also has investor ready formatting. So it has specific formatting and templates that will be relevant and right for investor meetings. So what I mean by that, for anyone who's presented to investors, is that there are specific slides in the structure, including your introduction, your mission. They will typically expect to see slides in a typical way. And a recent stat that I read said an investor spends around 2 minutes, just 2 minutes on your investor pitch, right? So this is why it's so crucial to get that design right and get those financials really, really good and really clear. So Slide Bean, right? Beautiful AI. So Beautiful AI is for founders who care a little bit about brand credibility and want maybe something more VC related quality. So this is going to give you some slide formatting. Now, with all of these, right, I'm not saying that you're going to get to your final finished deck, but what I am suggesting here is that you can get started, you can get something which you can then refine yourself or send to a professional to refine if you can, if you're in a financial position to do so. If you're not in a financial position to do so, then ultimately you can get started and you can tweak and adjust this yourself. But having said that, AI can help you to get much further with this deck much quicker, right? Gone are the days where we're spending weeks and hours just thinking, what do I need to include in my pitch? Next, in terms of more deck builders, right? I'm a huge fan of Gamma. I believe that Gamma is an excellent platform and tool, right? It's good because it has rapid storytelling and you can still turn prompts into pitches. You can copy paste in text and keep that text exactly as you have it, and it will create a deck around that. You have the option with Gamma to just partly create your deck, right? Create the design of your deck with your text, or to create it fully from a prompt, or to do something in between, right? Or for it to summarize your text and create your slides. Because who here has experienced a problem when they have too much text on their slides? The next one would be in terms of your pitch. So there is a platform called Pitch, and it is a deck builder. So again, here I'm making the recommendations. Decide by your business stage. So pitch is going to be best if you have teams and you're collaborating on a fundraising deck. Yeah. So that means real-time collaboration across slides and founders. It does have performance analytics, which I love, right? Which is around what do people look at in your deck? So that's the slide performance analytics. And that could be really helpful, right? Because if you are sharing your deck via email and you want to know what pages did that investor actually look at? Did they look at any page? This tool is going to give you some sense of the slide performance analytics. Then in terms of design flexibility, there's a little bit of that. So this could be if you have a team with multiple different stakeholders, and by that I mean if you have a head of marketing and you have a head of commercial and you have multiple individuals who would like input to your deck, right? And would like to form the deck collectively. That could be a good option. Next is Canva. Canva has magic design. And you may be familiar with this, but this is a particularly good option, right? If you're a bootstrapped startup and what you'd really like is some affordability and flexibility, right? So if you want a template library, you want AI content suggestions, if you want strong to create your own brand kit and to integrate that into your deck, then Canva Magic Design can help you to do that. And even though, right, there is a low cost paid option with Canva, there's also a low cost paid option with Gamma as well, right? But again, we're talking fractional spending compared to what it used to cost. right, to get this sort of stuff done, and the hours and the research and all the other elements, right? So again, these design tools are just helping you to take some decisions around the design. So next, ChatGPT as your pitch co-pilot. So OpenAI and ChatGPT, right, is, as you will know, highly versatile in terms of the tool and what it can do for you and how many different things it can do. You can give it your role, right? So you give it its role and, for example, a pitch expert, and it will help you, right? I will share with you in a moment how I have another option on this, right? But ChatGPT is great in that if you want to refine, I highly recommend it if you have copy, right, that you would like to refine and just develop. And I'm sure that some of you will have tried this, right? But your prompt is important. And that's why I provided your prompt pack today, because sometimes the quality of that prompt is defining the outcome. But again, if you have a one-liner, a sentence that you want to tweak or get some ideas on, ChatGPT is great for suggesting several different versions, helping you more quickly to brainstorm and simply develop something. Now, what's the risk of using ChatGPT? The risk, in some ways, with an idea and with your pitch messaging, is that it overdevelops it for you, right? So it offers to do it all for you, as I'm sure you will have come across. And doesn't that seem easy and neat, right? But unfortunately, the quality might not be, and the authenticity and the messaging might not be truly, right, your own. And when that happens, sometimes it can feel difficult to deliver your pitch if it's been entirely created via AI, right? So I'm recommending it for feedback, right? You can deliver your pitch verbally, let it listen, give you feedback on what was good about your pitch, what was not, right? So again, if coaching is not an option, I would recommend, something like ChatGPT. However, I would always recommend using your original inputs if possible, where you have a draft or you have a specific prompt, which is very effective. Important to write as a parameter. But ultimately, in terms of AI for your pitch, a brilliant area is how it can help with analytics, forecasting, modeling. AI is brilliant at numbers. And if you want to impress, right, and really have these kind of, you want some predictive scenarios around if someone moves forward, if they invest in your business, here's a kind of return they might see in 2 years' time. If you want to create some kind of scenario-based modeling, then Causal is going to be a really great option and tool. Causal is, again, it's going to help because you're not dependent on a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are not very appealing in an investor situation. And also in terms of scenario planning, right? So if you need a best case or a worst case, if they move ahead and you want to be realistic about the upside and the returns and the benefits, maybe again, you want some scenario-based modeling with an AI tool. So this is highly investor friendly. And even maybe you just want, right? You just want 1-2 slides from this, and then you want to lift that into your current pitch deck. But that's a way that you can really professionalize your slide output. In terms of Forecaster, right, and fundraising models, Forecaster is going to be good if you want actual fundraising models. So you want to create visuals of looking for this much fundraising across this many, right, this many investors. So again, maybe you want to create this sense of a forecast, specific startup assumptions, and you want to create, just like a sense of what overall you're looking for in a more exciting way than just referring to it. And maybe Forecaster is going to be a great tool for you to explore. After we cover this, we do have more for me to cover as well with you, but this is a summary. You can take a photo with your phone. You can literally write. So this is based on your funding stage here, your primary strength of the tool, the collaboration that you're looking for. Are you a solo founder? Are you on a team plan, etc.? And the cost level that you're looking for. Yeah. So is it low cost, mid cost? If you sign up for paid plans, most of the tools on the screen have a free option, but they won't have just free. So I've given you an indication as well on if they're mid cost, or low cost. But again, comparatively speaking, it is amazing, the cost for these types of AI tools. So now I'm going to share with you an AI workflow that really does work and is really simple to apply. So here is, right, this is your 5-step AI powered pitch process. So this is teaching you how you can literally clarify. So number one would be clarify, right? Use your pitch audit as I've given you today. Then you've got your pitch prompt pack. Okay. So I'm literally giving you a step-by-step action. If you do nothing else and you do not decide to work with me as part of an offer, which I'm going to present to you today, right? In a moment. But if you do nothing else, right, you can take your pitch prompt pack and you could go to ChatGPT and you can go to work in terms of defining your ideal client, sharpening your message, your problem statement, and your value proposition. You can stress test your positioning. Now, I shared as well that I was also going to let you know about another amazing provide for you, which is on my Instagram platform. If you go to my at Camilla Hazler, right, I actually have on that Instagram page, my Instagram, I have a buyer evaluator simulator. So what that does is it literally simulates a buyer, and you can ask it questions related to your pitch. So you can say, for example, what does my buyer want to see about this, right? And it will give you suggestions. So this is an amazing resource. It's completely free to use. Definitely, if you're not already following me, make sure that you follow me on Instagram as well. But yeah, this is a phenomenal resource, right? I've called it my buyer evaluator simulator. So it can help to give you extra ideas for this stage, which is clarifying your story and your messaging with ChatGPT. Step 2, if you're looking for investment, or if you're looking to, for example, you have a specific offering which brings financial returns for your ideal client, then you are going to use a tool like I shared with you just now, like Causal or Forecaster. And that's going to help you to create a clean scenario based, right? Very clean slide on your financial model. And maybe you want to also visualize, right? If you have a business model, like if it is a subscription based service, maybe you want a slide which indicates, right, how you work as a business. We need to always make this relevant to the buyer conversation, right? But that would be, okay, that would be step 2. Step 3, generate. This is if you don't have a draft of your deck, right? Generate. So you can use a tool like the ones I recommended here, like Gamma or Slidebean, to turn your existing and what you currently have got from using ChatGPT, using the prompt pack, using my buyer evaluator simulator, and then turning this into your draft pitch deck. Number 4 is to consider, do you need to polish visually those slides? You can do that in a tool like Gamma, or you can go to Beautiful AI or Pitch if you want really investor grade level slides. Number 5, I encourage you to practice with AI simulation. So use ChatGPT, use AI as your essentially get it to give you feedback on your pitch. If you don't have another option in terms of an expert in pitches. Okay. But of course, today I'm here with you. So again, I really encourage you to ask me questions on your pitch if you have key questions. But you can go to ChatGPT and get it to simulate with you around your pitch delivery and understand. That's if you do nothing else today. So I've already from this session, right? I've given you key ways and action steps and tools, more importantly, and resources. So you can directly get started with either enhancing your pitch, creating your pitch, or if you want to just rebuild and redo your pitch, right? So this is how your AI fundraising advantage starts. It's about not just necessarily being the best business, being the most established, but it is about using the tools and the resources that you have available. So again, this workflow is proven in terms of the effectiveness, but now will you take action? Will you do the work, right? Will you build or rebuild and consider your slides and your deck? Will you practice your delivery? Because they're not the most designed, but they are clearly, right? They're clearly outlined. So that is your AI fundraising advantage. That is how you directly can get started. So with that, I'm just going to pause here and check the chat, right? I'm going to check if we have any questions so far. So yes, as far as put, if you want to check out my buyer evaluator simulator, it is in the links on my profile. You will have to look through the links, and it is one of the links directly on my profile. So yes, try it out. Give me feedback. Tell me how you find it. I'd love to hear. So amazing. So let's touch back now to our deck, to our main core, right? What we've been learning today and how we can really, right? How can we really turn rejection and buyer hesitation into a different outcome, right? Because that is ultimately what we want to do. We want to really leverage our essentially we want to leverage our best possible pitch, and we want to transform and change the current outcomes that we get within our pitch, right? So that's the most important thing for us. Because if we're doing things differently, then ultimately we have achieved, right? Number one, we're achieving more change, but more importantly, we're trying to create more conversion, more clients, and more success in our pitch result. So again, this is why we're here today, right? This is so important. So now I've given you a stack, right? A full stack in terms of the different mechanics and ways you can build your pitch, that it's not just about more content, right? I said about that many landing pages actually never make it live. They actually never go fully live. They're in. Who here has jumped on a URL and being like, oh my goodness, like I cannot see the website. It says it's in, it's currently being done. So if that's been you, and if you've experienced that, again, what perception did you have of the brand? What perception did you have around, that business? Was it critical, right? So why do landing pages get stuck and stall? They stall because of tech fear, right? Maybe it's about fear around hiring someone or fear of the tech itself and really working with it. They can stall because of endless tweaking and adjustments. Oh my goodness. Who here has had the most perfect landing page in about 30 different variations? And they just couldn't decide which one to finally have. Again, that can be an issue, right? We can be trying out different designs and testing and tweaking endlessly so that we never decide on our final landing page. Maybe we have a bit of decision fatigue, right? We feel like there are just too many choices around having a good landing page. And so ultimately, we decide not to take action and move forward. And due to that, what happens? Well, essentially, we get stuck because we haven't put our landing page out there. That is so sad when that happens, right? So we don't want this to happen for us. And we don't want to overbuild as well. So we don't want to just add features in for the sake of it. We want to have the right elements and for it not to overwhelm our buyer. So now I'm going to teach you, right? Here is what I call the copy page publishing system, right? So number one today about the clarity in your pitch, and we went through the 5 different pillars. That was your clarity pitch builder. Then I went through the structure of the 7-sentence pitch that stops rejection, like literally the structure. So that is for your copy and your landing page as well. Next is the execution part, right? So I've just outlined to you several different tools and options so that you can take action and build these different elements in terms of your pitch deck. How about your landing page, right? Who here wants to transform their landing page into something even better from being here, right? From understanding what is possible if they take action. Because wouldn't it be amazing to set yourself a mini 40, a mini goal to really take action? So that's why, right? That's why this is so important. Because if you set yourself a goal to just take action and implement what you've learned in just 48 hours, right? You could have this completely done. So now here's a key component, right? In terms of, it's called the 12-second pitch builder. So as part of the work you've been doing on your pitch, right? I'd like to, as part of taking what was essentially your 7-sentence pitch, we need to now compress this for our landing page. So you want to have your 12-second pitch builder, right? And what this is a framework, right, for instant clarity. It's your fill-in prompts. It's 10 real examples across industries, and it's the delivery notes, right? So this is something I have for you, right? This is something which I'm not giving for free, but something which I've created, right, to help you to build your landing page, right? So if you want to do this in a structured, systematic way, this will help you to craft your pitch openings and your page opening in a way that is going to outline and orientate your prospect and just create that forward momentum, right? So that's why it's so, so crucial. So here's what I've talked about, right? So the 48-page live planner, right? So if today you have a messy landing page, if you want more structured clarity, if you want to have a published landing page asset in 48 hours or less, then this is for you. Here's what you get in the planner, right? You get an hour by hour timeline map. You get a checklist, right? You get an export, HTML export guide, which is a landing, how you can export your HTML page from whatever tool you use and then import it to your current platform, right? So if you currently use, maybe you use, some of the key ones would be like a Squarespace, Wix, right? You can upload an HTML. You get your pre-launch QA checklist as well. So this is going to remove the paralysis in terms of too many options for your landing page. That's going to give you about some of the like derailing moments about choosing copy and structuring that page. Let's just think now together, right, about the tangible value of doing this. So if you hire a copywriter, typically, what would that cost? Around 2K, right? If they're a highly experienced one. Again, there are different options for copywriters and you can work with them in different ways, but it might be as much as £2,000. Maybe you hire a funnel consultant as well, right? That's £1,500 typically, up to that. Again, different levels of funnels. Funnel might start from around £500-600 typically, right? In terms of months wasted, this is another cost to you and your business, right? If you're going to spend about 3 months trying to do it yourself, actually realizing that you don't want to or you don't have the time to actually do it, then again, your page still stays in draft. This is so, so expensive for you. And because ultimately you're not paying for someone else's time, you're investing in a system that installs clarity for your business and your client, your end client, and more, right? It's going to deliver more ROI every single time that someone buys or books a meeting or signs up to your mailing list from that page. So that's a kind of tangible value from having a good landing page, right? So this is important, right? So maybe you're asking yourself at this particular moment in time, you're saying, but I'm not a technical person. It's completely, my approach is tool agnostic. I'm not going to teach you as an approach which is only relevant to one specific tools. I've looked into so many different key funnel tools, and I can tell you that this is an approach which is not just for one tool. It will work well for any current web hosting tool that you have, right? So don't worry about that. It's about the copy and it's about again, a system which focuses on message clarity and making it compelling and appealing. And it's not about excessive technical features and implementation. If you're saying that your offer is not perfect, it's not quite ready yet, I would ask you to question whether, in terms of, if it is never going to be perfect in the sense of, doesn't need to be perfect in the sense of fully 100% everything. It needs to be clear that you're a business who provides an amazing solution, and it needs to have its purpose, but you don't need everything to be in place and finalized before you get started on the landing page. I want to say, maybe you're saying you're too busy
to commit to doing this in the next 48 hours. But this is really the value, which is that you ideally want to do this properly, do this well, and you want to do it once. And maybe you want to come back to it after you've sold multiple amounts, after you've worked with many, many clients, then you'll refine it. But again, we want this to be one and done. You do not want, ideally, for this to be falling into more months of indecision, right? And maybe you're thinking, well, does this actually work for my specific specialism in the industry? And that's an important question, that if your buyer decision clarity increases on your page, right? This is really not about one industry or another. This is about, yes, this will work for, all industries, because it's not about, again, it's not about the features, it's not about the technical aspects, it's about creating a pitch which truly appeals to your buyer in a very structured and specific way, which works across offerings, right? So let's remember this as well. The publishers get paid, and tweakers for copywriting and tweakers in terms of landing pages, right? They're just going to essentially stay undiscovered, which is the saddest one. We do not want your business to be undiscovered or less visible, right? Anyone who doesn't have a landing page online, it is incredibly critical, right? That your page is visible, that it can be discovered. This is the difference between you being found and discovered, and whether it's Google SEO or whether it's now, right, AEO and AI generated. If you want to be found by AI, right, AI crawling and AI patterns, you still need a site. You need some content online to be ultimately picked up, right? So it's incredibly crucial. And just remembering that, right, that we don't want you to get stuck without, in this phase, right, of clarity, some clarity, but without the structure, or with leaking and losing some revenue somewhere, right? You do not want to be losing any revenue. You don't want to be losing some leads and clients because ultimately they were unable to determine quickly enough. And let's remember how many minutes that typically an online buyer is going to spend on your page, on your business online. It's going to be a few minutes. It's not and then you need to build that interest. If you demonstrate your relevance and build their interest, it can be more than that, right? But initially, you've got a very rapid time frame. If in your pitch, you have a couple of minutes, 1 to 2 minutes typically, to establish that rapport, demonstrate the relevance, and really start to interest your buyer. You have possibly the same or less time with your landing page, right? So we need to remember that brilliant messaging or your brilliant potential can get lost. So I want to say this as well. I want to explain that you don't need more sections to your website. You don't need a fancier, more expensive web design tool. You don't need the top web designer in your industry, but you do need, right? You do not need, right, everything, but you do need some things. You don't need too many testimonials, but you need some. You don't need to say everything, but you need to say the right things, right? And sometimes that's the difficulty, right? How do you know what's going to resonate the most? You don't need multiple offers. You need one or two, right? And you need to be very specific and clear about why that offer is the one for your ideal buyer. You don't need multiple calls to action necessarily. Who here has been on a landing page where they've had about 17 calls to action? You don't need necessarily that many calls to action, but you do need to make it easy for your buyer to move forward. So complexity is going to slow decisions. And every additional element that you add is a potential exit point to your buyer on that page. So the goal isn't to showcase everything, but it is to facilitate that decision moment, just like with your pitch, right? You want to facilitate it. So now I'm going to teach you this, and we have, right, these are the key slides around landing pages. Right? So definitely, if you want to screenshot this, if you want to note these down, make sure you do. So there's 7 key blocks to your landing page, which are going to support decisions. Now, one is going to be the hero section. This is important because it is indicating either your client is the hero or you are the hero. your hero section really matters in terms of your structure. Number two, coming back to the pitch structure I taught you earlier, is the real problem. What's happening now? What is the real problem that you're able to solve, right? And indicating that. Number three, what's the shift? What is the transformation? Or like we touched on earlier, right? What's that transformation or subtle part of your mechanism, which creates a better outcome for your client? How are they better off? They get, right? So a lot of companies are thinking who they are, who they are, who they are. But how about what your ideal buyer gets? What exactly do they get? Do they get specific, clear, measurable outcomes? Do they get, like we said earlier, do they get tangibles? So do they get something like they specifically can have for a certain amount of time, right? Physically, or do they get an intangible like confidence, like peace of mind, like freedom, right? What's the tangible or intangible that they get as an outcome by working with you? What is the proof? What's the evidence you have that builds that confidence in this option of working with you? These are all for your landing page, right? So the proof and then the objection handling. You need to pre-frame those objections, right? So address the hesitation that the buyer could be feeling in that exact direct moment with you then and there on that page. Why this is so effective is because, again, we need to be realizing that as a buyer gets closer and closer to commitment, right, they start to panic, right? They start to seriously think more about what they're doing. So if this is the decision point and commitment, right, the closer they get, the more they start to think about what they're actually doing. Right. So objection handling is important. We want to address what could be the top 3, 4 objections that they could be thinking now before they move forward. Number 7, what is the clear next step? What is, and this comes back exactly, right, to action taking and to the end of your pitch. What is the clear next step? What's the one decision that you're inviting them? What's the action they need to take just to get started, right? So again, keeping it clear and simple, that clear next step. So each block is going to address a specific psychological function in your buyer's mind in terms of decision, right? So now I'm going to just walk you through what I've shared in terms of, to recap on these points, right? Very, very quickly. So the hero section this is making the first decision easy. And the first decision is, should they stay on this page? Is it for them? Who is this for? What are the changes? What's the promise or the transformation that you can bring, you're offering? What do they need to do next, right? What's the clear single action they need to take? We don't need clever hooks. We don't need vague promises, right? We just need some kind of creativity. So it's about making qualification really instant, right? So qualify your buyer on the hero section. Then explain the shift, right? This is blocks 2 and 3 on your page. So just imagine the structure. So you've got the hero is at the top, and then we've got the shift, right? These are blocks 2 and 3. So again, I said, speaking about the transformation, or the shift mechanism, right? So this is the next block. So what's the current problem that's agitated, which is uncomfortable for your lead in this section? And what's the shift that they might be able to achieve? So that's, what might be uncomfortable to your buyer now. And then moving forward, what is the next step that they can expect here, right? So that's the shift in the next section. Then we want to support their decision. Going back to what I shared earlier, right? Stages, they're now moving from awareness to interest and now to desire. So now we want to support their decision, build that interest into this decision and desire. So what do they get? What is the proof that you have that your offering really works and will work for them? Objections. What are they already starting to think? What are they worried about? You want to reduce the hesitation of your buyer, right? So that's the aim of this decision section. Then finally, you've got your 1 page, 1 decision, call to action, right? So the clear next step, don't offer too many. next steps, like I've said, just want to offer one, okay? And not something unclear, like learn more. Here are some more options for you. You want to be clear about what it is at this decision point in the page. What's the one thing they need to do? So we want to apply structure to remove any guessing, to avoid them getting lost on your landing page. And we want to make sure that it's incredibly clear. And that is where, as I mentioned, this 48-hour map that I have that can help, right? Because again, it's making it very, very clear on the next step exactly what to do, when, and sometimes that is the difference as well. How well does everyone here work under a deadline, under a specific timeline, right? That's why it's so important. And this is why, again, having a map, having a plan is so, so crucial. So I shared with you that in terms of moving forward with this offer, right, for those who want to move while this is live. So imagine, right, for a moment with me that, and you've just joined this session and you've understood, and I have shared with you, right, the different aspects to succeeding with your pitch. I've shared with you about the structure. I've shared with you about the delivery. I've shared with you around the tools that can help you to do this. I've shared with you about your landing page and how important the structure is and how it's your pitch in print. But who here is feeling like, okay, I completely understand theoretically how this works and how this applies. But having said that, it seems like there is a lot, right, that they need to work on in potentially a quick space of time. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, and if you're feeling like this sounds amazing, but at the same time, knowing yourself, knowing how, right, how you take action and work on things, do you know that, for example, with the pitch audit, where I said do your pitch audit, will you be able to commit to doing your pitch audit today? Because that is the first step. So do your 7-minute pitch audit. But let's say you would like some support and some help with this, right? Let's say you would like someone like me who has delivered hundreds of pitches, sold to hundreds of companies, who has heard and not just, right, who has worked with founders to really refine their messaging. If you would like, right, the benefit of not only information, not only structure, not only guidance, like we've covered today, as I shared with you, but you would actually like some coaching. You would like some extra support to ensure that this happens to a standard that is beyond, right? Beyond what you can achieve. So again, I've said you can achieve great results with doing extra work yourself. You can achieve great results with leveraging AI, but you can achieve exceptional results with a pitch expert and with working on and having coaching around your pitch and the delivery and your landing page and your deck and your messaging, right? Just to say it is 4 times more powerful, right? So again, if this is something that today has illustrated, right, this is incredibly important. If you get this piece right, if you want, again, whether it's clients, whether it's results, whether it is that you want your business to have traction and a list of prospects, right, in a pipeline, whether it is that you want to scale the initial interest that you have that bit faster, your pitch, the work that we will do, will be the core to your business conversion and the client generating aspect that you really picture for yourself, right? So who here has had a moment where what they picture for their business and what they know they deserve and it can achieve, right? And there is this moment of discomfort, which is there is a gap right now. There is a gap. It is challenging. For whatever reason, you've experienced challenges to get to this point and to really turn that into, right, what you see, what you dream of and what you want for your business. So I can completely relate if you've experienced challenges. Being an entrepreneur and a founder is one of the most challenging, right? One of the most challenging things that you can do. And it does take support and it does take, right, at certain key points, the right mentors and guides, right, to really help you. So again, I've been selling for a long time. I've generated, in terms of my own sales, very significant amounts. I've generated over 10 million in sales. But why I like to help and work with founders and really make an impact is because I do want, I want others to benefit from the ability to create better lives for themselves and their business through better sales, through actually having clients to help and directly work with. And I really take time with each of the founders I work with. I will work with you personally on this to ensure that within a set timeline, we're talking 48 hours for your landing page. We're talking in your pitch, you can get to pitch readiness in sessions across 7 days if you want to, or you can choose to take a slightly slower route and you can do that across 30 days with a weekly session with me, whichever you prefer, right? But I do want you, whatever you decide, whatever feels right for you, I want you to have the best options and I want you to have the best resources, right? So again, if this is resonating and you're realizing that right now you're completely clear on what you want, what your vision is for your business, valuing the potential that you have, and if what is coming in the way is, the landing page, the decision, and helping to educate your buyer around their decision in your pitch, on the landing page, with your deck, then let me help you to do that. Because again, it's something I do all the time. So that's the difference, really. Why would we hire someone, to help us to do this more effectively? Well, because you can get there faster, you can then free yourself up to simply developing those client relationships, building that pipeline, building that revenue, as opposed to worrying about the fundamentals and what is not working in your current pitch, in your current offering. And trust me, just figuring out what is not working and working on each of these core elements can take significant time if it is not addressed in a very in strategic ways and with a sense of confidence. So I'm here for you. If this sounds like something that you would like to develop and work on, and I will offer to everyone who has joined this session, I will offer you the opportunity to work with me personally over 4 sessions, and I will, it the result and the difference will be measurable, right? So again, if this is interesting, I'll also include the pitch decision deck review that I mentioned earlier. That will be included if you sign up. So if you would like to sign up and take action, on this offer, I want you to either DM me. I want you to go to my Instagram at Camilla Hazler, and I want you to DM me with the word, this is my Instagram. I want you to DM me with the word intensive, Intensive, which is the pitch intensive offer, which is what I'm going to do, which will be your 48-hour landing page, which will be your deck, which will be all of the great elements which we've talked about. So you can go there and you can comment with the word intensive. You can also, as well, if you want to get started and you want to understand more about what I do and how I can help you with this specific offer, you can also go to the landing page for this, as well. So I just want to take a moment just to check if there are any questions on this offer or on this session for any part. So Cara, are there any questions in the chat from the group in terms of any questions from this event?
No questions so far, although we have Taupe, which just joined us just now.
Okay, great. So hi, Tove. Thank you for joining. You missed a packed session. We've covered a lot in a rapid space of time, right? I want to invite everyone before, most importantly, to recap what we've covered, right? We went through your 7-sentence pitch structure. The replay will be available for 48 hours from this webinar, so make sure it will be shared with you soon. right? And then you will have 48 hours to watch it. It will be shared with you by tomorrow, if not before. So remember that 48 hours to rewatch anything from this session, including the 7-sentence pitch structure to stop rejection, including the 5 pillars to make and reduce buyer resistance in your pitch, including the section on AI and AI workflows to build your pitch. And most importantly, including the section we just covered on how you can structure your landing page specifically to convert more buyers and to reduce buyer resistance. So everything will be in the replay. If you missed any part of this session, don't forget the resources in the chat as well. You've got your 10 pitch prompts. I invite you all, if you've enjoyed the session, if this has resonated, right, make sure you take action, take the pitch prompt pack, take the link, download it, go to your favorite LLM right now while all this information is really fresh for you. Try out the prompts, right? Try them out for your business, develop your pitch. And then also, most importantly, find that other resource in the chat, which is the audit. Record your pitch, 2 to 5 minutes, right? Sit and do the scorecard. Maybe if you're still thinking about if you want to move forward with the offer I mentioned, do your pitch audit, score that, sit with it and understand it. And then again, if you'd like some more clarity, if you'd like to understand anything on that pitch audit and you're like, oh, wow, actually, my score is not exactly where I want to be at, then again, reach out to me. Again, you can message me with the word intensive or pitch intensive, and I will hop on a call with you following this session. We can discuss, right? We can discuss what you're interested in, and we can discuss your pitch in a little detail. We can assess if the pitch intensive offer is right for you. So that is also available. So again, if you would like a call from the session and you've enjoyed this, I would love to discuss with you and help you to understand more about how I might be able to help you, right? So with that, I'd like to thank everyone so much for joining today's webinar. Thank you for whether you've joined the full session, whether you've joined part of it. Do take action with your pitch. I hope this has showed you the importance of refining and building your pitch. And if you're not already connected with me on Instagram, make sure you check out my page, give me a follow, check out that buyer evaluator simulator I mentioned as well. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. And we will close this session. We will stay online. If you want to pop any questions in the chat before you dial out, please do. And yeah, wish you so much success with your pitches. And I hope this has been helpful and valuable for you today. Thank you again for joining.